Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to ORL. It's Thursday, it's 8 o'clock, and that can only mean one thing because it is a race day for the A-Split ORL as we make our way to Shanghai, China for round 3 of the season. For those of you who are new to ORL, the online racing league, we wish you a very warm welcome and we hope you stay with us for the rest of the season. Currently leading the standings in first place is Velocity Hypers on 50 points. Meanwhile, Napadovsky in second on 19, only 1 point ahead of Formula Danny on 18 points. As Mark 313 takes fourth on 16 points ahead of Photon on 15 points. In the Constructors' Championship, it's very similar to last season. We're seeing a very quick Velocity driver in a very good Mercedes team, as Mercedes leading the standings on 50 points ahead of Red Bull on 28, with Toro Rosso rounding out the top 3 on 27 points. 4th and 5th are taken up by Renault and Alfa Romeo Sauber, I should say, on 22 and 20 points respectively. But with 5 minutes into the qualifying session here at the 16-corner Shanghai circuit, with one of the longest straights, if not the longest straight in the F1 calendar, heading down into turn 14. I believe it is almost a mile long, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, I think it's about a kilometer long. But we're riding on board with Formula Danny, who's actually just going to come straight into the pits. Let's see if there is anyone out on a hot lap. I think Stiv might be setting up for a hot lap here, or may just be coming into the pits at the end of his fast lap. But it seems that everyone opting for these soft tires, and we did see actually last time out it was Formula Danny and Stiv who decided to qualify on the soft tires while everyone else qualified on the medium tires, and that left Formula Danny and Stiv in a rather sticky predicament when they had to pit early and they came out into traffic, which arguably cost Danny the race win to his Veloce teammate Hypers, who ended up making it 2 from 2. However, Hypers is here today. Of course, I didn't spot him in the lobby earlier, but he is here looking to make it 3 race victories from 3. We know how quick Formula Danny is, and he always seems to have that qualifying pace, but we do generally talk about him, not that he's not taking things seriously, but that he goes for some interesting strategy calls, trying to make the more difficult strategies work to have more exciting races. And you just have to feel that if he just went for those more optimal strategies, he'd have a much more comfortable time. Also, another one to watch out for is Fabrizio Donoso, who is not actually here today, which is a shame. We do know how quick he is. So, your drivers to watch out for then: Velocity Formula Danny, Velocity Hypers, Velocity James as well. You can never count out a Velocity driver. Photon's also been doing quite well recently, as has Mark. Should have had 2 consecutive podiums, and it's been a real improvement from him since last season, where he was kind of tagging at the back of that leading group along with Photon. So good stuff from them. Also, watch out for Cologon and Stiv, both very, very quick and up there with the top Velocity drivers. Also, going to give a quick shout out to our 3 Sauber Esports drivers, Formula Danny, James, and Kimi Larson. Watch out for all 3 of them as well. But drivers starting to make their way on for their second of 3 flying laps. We'll have to see what tires they go for, but it looks like everyone will be going for these soft compounds. Now, who do we want to ride on board with? If you guys have any preferences, we will try to ride on board with them. Also, please use their feel free to use their real life names, but if you want me to give a shout out to them, their in-game names would be slightly helpful, as I can't remember everyone's in-game name and real name. So we're going to sit on board with Stiv actually, who's coming into turns 14 and 15. And we'll be looking to set up. He's flying up 100% on the ERS. Let's ride on board with one of our top drivers then for his second of 3 flying laps. Gets right on the curb, tries to cut. Turn 16 as much as he can to get the best possible drive. He makes his way into turn 1. How late will he go on the brakes? About 30 meters for the ever-tightening turns 1 and 2. Drag the car all the way in now. Try to set yourself up to get the best possible exit. And into 3. Get the power down. Let the car out. Just clip the curb. Now heading down into turn 4. How late will he be? About 80-90 meters. Just clipping the curb. Not riding over that too much. Always a tricky corner to get right. So easy to run wide, and it's much slower than it looks. As almost flat all the way through turn 7. Through 8. Now chuck it into 9. He runs slightly wide. That won't affect him too much. Into 10. Practically flat. Runs really far out wide, using as much of the track as he can. Shouldn't have been any track to limit. Slows it down, shifting through the gears seamlessly. He makes his way now through turns 12 and 13. Easy on the throttle. Can't get too eager. Let the car run all the way out wide. And he might have just exceeded track limits there. We'll have to see whether the lap will be invalidated or not. Ooh, 105 meters. He snaps on the brake pedal, just tapping the curb on the apex. Straight back on the power as he makes his way into the final corner of turn 16. Runs a little bit wide. Straight line it to the start finish mark. What's it going to be? It's a 30.5, and Stiv will remain in 5th place, or will take 5th place. Napadovsky just having finished his fast lap. Actually, I think he might be on a lap now. He's 5,000ths of a second up. See what he can do as he makes his way through turns 7 and 8. Back end just seeming a little bit more twitchy than it was on Stiv. Onto the brakes. Get it turned in, and once again the game of patience now through turns 12. So you look to get yourself lined up for 13. Get the power on. Much cleaner than Stiv, not having to run out as wide. Down the straight, we saw Stiv braking just before the 100-meter board. Going to be about the same from Napadovsky. A little bit of an under rotation on that front right tire, but he'll make the apex regardless. It just seems that a little bit better. Prisnida currently sitting first with a 30.1. Napadovsky rides right over the curb for 16. What's it going to be? It's a 30.59, practically identical to Stiv. But there is one man that we do want to see, and that is our current championship leader, Velocity Hypers. Let's see what he can do. As actually, where is Formula Danny? Formula Danny currently in the 3rd, so he's having a harder time than usual. Oh, but Hypers getting on the power, just hearing that wheel spin. He's actually going to come into the pit, so a 30.9 in qualifying, as, wow, the top 10 separated by less than a second. In fact, the entire field separated by 1.5 seconds if you ignore Krusix and Vatkan. I just want to double check a few things, make sure everything's working, and yes, it is. Don't forget, if you notice any issues with the stream, whether that is audio levels or lagging, do let us know as soon as you can so we can get it all fixed up to give you an even better viewing experience. Actually, Nameless is on his outlets. Let's sit on board with him. Qualified fairly well, if I remember, back at Bahrain. We'll be looking to do more of the same here at Shanghai. Don't forget, when we talk about the Constructors' Championships, currently Mercedes leading ahead of Red Bull, Toro Rosso, Renault and Alfa Romeo. Mercedes, as Velocity James is a 29A, that is a lap and a half. And he'll take provisional pole by almost over 3/10 of a second, so great lap from the Velocity man. But going back to what I was saying, Mercedes currently leading. Their drivers are Velocity Hypers and Samuel Liebert. Red Bull on at 26 points. That's Napadovsky and Matthias Kologon. Matthias Kologon, the driver to watch out for them. The Verstappen to Gasly No offense, but Colo gone very, very quick back at Bahrain. Toro Rosso is our reigning champion, Calcifer and Photon. Calcifer having a tough start to the season, although he did manage to secure a 4th place back at Bahrain after we saw quite a few disconnects. Photon also one to watch out for, and quite an evenly paced team with Photon having a slight advantage, I feel. Over to Renault, currently sitting in 4th on 22 points. That's Kopi and Etnik, who are both doing a good job, and another evenly matched team. Alfa Romeo Sauber, though, that is Velocity James and Velocity Formula Danny. That is the strongest team on the field, I believe, hands down. James, he almost did a last to first challenge last week, but the disconnect unfortunately hit him hard, and it cost Sauber a lot of points. It could have been about 15 extra points, which would have taken them into second by quite a margin. So watch out for Sauber in the race. Watch out for Sauber over the entire championship, because they are going to be very, very fast. As Cologon starting on a hot lap. Actually, he's just finished his hot lap, 30.7, unable to improve. Let's get on board with Marcus. Marcus having a moment. Oh, he loses the back end, heading through, I believe that's turn 10, and that's going to be his session over. A massive shame for Mark, and his seasons just go from bad to worse, and it just seems there's always something. But 2 minutes from the end, we're going to keep on focusing on what's happening out on track. Let's get on board with our reigning champion Calcifer, who is on a hot lap right now. I'm just want to actually, I've got some time. Unfortunately, I don't have a dual monitor, so I can't check everything at the same time. Every time I try to tab out, it decides to pause the game, because F1 2019 and Codemasters are great as Calcifer having a moment through turn 10, just like we saw Mark have, as that's a lockup on the front left tire. I think that would invalidate his lap time. I think Calcifer's backing out of this. No, he's still going, he's still pushing. Going to run wide through turn 13, and I think that lap is 100% invalidated now. Hello, Mr. Max Martin. How are you doing, my dude? Calcifer's not actually saving his ERS, so he's looking to push regardless, as Formula Danny and James on hot laps, as is Kimi Larson. We haven't been able to sit on board with him, so we might just have to sit on board just to see. But Calcifer on a slow lap. I don't think he's going to improve. 31.2 will actually put him ahead of Photon, but that will be it. Down in the battle for the wooden spoon. Calcifer retires from the session. He's not going to be able to do anything else. Kimi Larson finding 0.04 of a second. Hypers is on an outlap. Formula Danny is as well. Presnyder has just started his outlap as well. But let's see what Kimi Larson can do. I think I spotted a few Kimi Larson fans in the chat. And let's see if he can make you all proud. 3,000s up. Sorry, 300s up through the second sector. So he's looking to feed the power in through the long sweeping right-hander. China Tractor Taurus for those long right-handers, just wearing out those front left tires so much. Down the back straight we go. How late will he dare brake? Trying to eke everything out. He brakes just at the 100-meter mark. No lockup at all. Clean as a whistle. Kimi Larson feeding the power in. Just one more corner to go as the qualifying session is about to end. He tries to take as much curve as possible. Could have maybe gone on the power a little bit sooner. What's it going to be? Is a 29.9. Kimi Larson moves up to second. But that's going to be all that she wrote. Formula Danny is on a hot lap. Where is Hypers? Hypers coming through the long right-hander. He needs to get a good lap in. He's currently sitting outside the top 10. What can he do? We haven't seen what his current split time is. Actually, I think if I alternate, no, it won't tell me. How late will he brake? Dropping through the gears down into first. Clipping the apex really nicely. But I noticed a little bit of a different line from Hypers in that penultimate corner. What can he do now into turn 16 on the power? Beautiful as you like. Hypers, it's a 30.7. It's not enough. He's only in 11th place, and Shanghai, not seemingly a good track for Mr. Hypers, as Photon is one of our next drivers. He has a massive lockup into the penultimate corner. That's really going to cost him big time. What is Photon going to do? Is he going to come in the pits? No, he's going to keep on going, getting the power on as early as he can. DRS activated. What is it going to be? It's a 31.8. He jumps ahead of his teammate Calcifer. Let's move up the grid because Formula Danny coming into the penultimate corner. What can he do? James is just ahead of him. Will James improve? We're not sure. Formula Danny, what's it going to be? It's a 30.5. He doesn't improve. Samuel, actually, where are you, James? James coming through the final corner. Can he improve? He has a little bit of a moment. Going to keep it going. It's a 29.7. James goes even quicker and is 2/10 faster than Kimi Larson and will lock out pole position. Right, guys, so here are your final results. Velocity James takes pole position ahead of the Haas of Kimi Larson. Presnyder takes third ahead of Napadovsky, while Formula Danny and Stiv lock out the third row of the grid. Nameless and Kopi on the fourth row, while Etnik and Vatkan lock out the top 10. Kologon and our championship leader Hypers make up 11th and 12th, with Lehman and Marianne close behind. Only less than a tenth separating these guys. Liebert in 15th, ahead of Mark, who has a poor qualifying session after a good few runs, while Photon takes 17th place. We're going to be heading into a short break, but we'll be right back with the start of race 3. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a wet Shanghai track. For those of you who don't know how this works, I need to do a reintroduction for highlight purposes, so please do bear in mind when that happens in about 20 seconds time. But we hope you're all excited, so light up that Twitch chat so that we can see some fantastic messages. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a wet Shanghai for round 3 of ORL Season 11 for the F1 Split A Championship. Your pole sitter is Velocity James, who was able to take a dominant display in qualifying, picking up pole 2/10 ahead of Kimi Larson. Presnyder takes third ahead of Napadovsky, with Formula Danny in 5th ahead of Stiv in 6th. Nameless was able to take 7th ahead of the two runners of Kopi and Etnik, as Vatkan locking out the top 10. Matthias Kologon, after a strong race in Bahrain, takes 11th ahead of our championship leader Velocity Hypers. Lehman takes 13th ahead of Marianne, while Samuel Liebert is the second of the Mercedes in 15th. Mark in the Ferrari with a poor qualifying session after a very strong showing in Bahrain in Australia. However, Mark did hit the wall quite early on and was forced to retire from qualifying, so he will be one to watch out for in the race. Photon takes 17th ahead of Matthias in 18th, while Calcifer is the second of the Toro Rossos ahead of the Haas of Krusix. Your championship standings currently. Hypers is leading the championship on 50 points with 2 wins from 2. Napadovsky in second on 19, ahead of Formula Danny, who's only attended 1 race so far on 18 points. Mark in 16th after having a disconnect last time out, which cost him a podium position, while Photon takes 5th place on 15 points. Meanwhile, in the Constructors' Championship, is Mercedes leading the runnings on 50 points, ahead of Red Bull on 28, and Toro Rosso only 1 point behind with 27. Renault on 22 points, but potentially the strongest team on the grid, Alfa Romeo Sauber, with the 2 Velocity boys of James and Formula Danny, are in 5th place on 20 points. James, currently lining up on pole with Formula Danny in 5th. This could be a big haul of points for them and will most certainly be something to watch out for as the drivers make their way through the final corner of the formation lap to begin the race. We're seeing a couple of Photon fans in the chat, so let's get this race underway. Of course, qualifying was in a very dry circumstance, but the rain has arrived here at China, much like the smog overhangs the city of Shanghai. All drivers have lined up on the grid, and we await the 5 red lights. Out come the lights. James starting on pole. Can he get the grip in a wet condition? Away we go for the Shanghai Grand Prix. It's not the best of starts for James, as Kimi Larson might be looking to sneak up alongside. Going to decide to slot in behind a Stiv. Potentially getting a good start. Going to make his way past Formula Danny, as we're going to ride on board with Napadovsky, who has Formula Danny right alongside him. Stiv trying to look for 3rd place. Round the outside of turn 3. Can he find the grip on the outside? No, he can't. And neither can Napadovsky, who's forced to slot into 6th place. As here we go, Stiv looking down the inside. Oh, there's almost contact between Stiv and Larson. Side by side now between the Force India and the McLaren. McLaren gonna have the inside for turn 6. Gonna hold that. But can Stiv do anything here? He's gonna look to switch you right back down the inside. Gets on the curve, losing the back end a little bit. Potentially just saw a little bit of ghosting, as well as Stiv looking to try to find a cutback. Can't find anything though. Great defensive stuff from Prisnider. Meanwhile, looking down the grid, who are our big movers? Matthias Collegon having a great start up into 7th after starting in 11th, while Lehmann gaining 5 places and up into 8th. Samuel Lieber as well gaining 4 places up into 11th. Unfortunately, though, Kopi seemingly involved in an incident. He's down in 20th, as we're seeing a Ferrari and a McLaren side by side. Let's look on board with Samuel Lieber, as Hypers, our championship leader, looking to get some points. Is in 10th. He switches over to the inside. What can he do? Will he go for the late break? As he has to be careful now, because Etnik potentially might want to be getting involved in this. Lieber on that traction. There's a little bit of contact between Etnik and Hypers. Etnik going out onto the artificial grass, as someone flying into the pits. I think that was a Red Bull. That might have been Collegon. I'm not quite sure. No, it's Calcifer. Calcifer into the pits. Etnik, though, trying to get the best of runs through this first sequence of corners. However, Prisnider very, very close to Stiv. And actually, Formula Danny is going to look for something. He goes straight for the inside. Look at the lockup on the front left tyre. But Formula Danny going to be able to make the move work and moves up into 4th place. As Prisnider falling down another spot. All drivers are on the intermediate tyres. We're not quite sure whether we will be seeing the track drying out or not, as Nameless actually still ahead of Hypers. They're chasing down Lehmann and Matthias Collegon, as I think Prisnider was looking for something back onto Formula Danny. However, Velocity James stretching out a lead ahead of Kimi Larson and Stiv over a second, separating all of them. Of course, in these wet conditions, there is no DRS, which makes overtaking that a little bit harder. So getting as much of an advantage as you can in these opening ups is crucial. As Samuel Lieber retires from the session, that's 1 Mercedes down. Mercedes' hopes in the Constructors' Championship are all now resting on Mr. Hypers, the 13-year-old Velocity driver. As I think we're seeing 2 Red Bulls up ahead. As Hypers, he does take that apex really nicely. But let's just take a look what's happening. Napadovsky and Prisnider side by side, as getting very, very close. Napadovsky right under the chuff of that McLaren. No longer a GP2 engine. Napadovsky, though, not going to be able to do anything down the inside. Thinks better of it, and will just slot back in behind Prisnider. However, look at Collegon looking to get a late apex through turn 2. But I don't think he's quite going to be able to get the drive here. Still an extremely close battle, going all the way from 5th down to 10th. Velocity Hypers, the one rounding out this battle, and Prisnider at the front of this Timo Glock train, as I like to call it. But let's just sit on board with our championship leader. Have to be so careful in these wet conditions, just feeding the power in. Oh, he touches the curb. Not going to affect him too much though. Actually, Cruze's closing in on Marion. We might have to take a look at what's going over there. Calcifer though, right at the back, 30 seconds down. Must have been involved in an incident of sorts. Potentially had to change that front wing, but look at this up ahead. Kologon and Napadovsky with some really good runs in the two Red Bulls. Red Bull currently sitting second in the championship. They're going to be fighting it out here. They've both got good points. And I'm sure Christian Horner, or the esports version of Christian Horner, will be tapping that hill away in frustration. I can't think of the word. My English has gone. But Napadovsky, once again, getting a good run. And we did see back in ORL Season 10, I believe it was at Silverstone. It was Timp who won the race that time out. But it was a wet condition and it was so hard for everyone to find a way through. DRS just so vital in the game anyway. And I know in real life when we see wet races, we see great racing coming through. But it seems to be the opposite over here in sim racing, or at least in the F1 games. As up ahead, I think it's closing up quite a lot. Kimi Larson getting hunted down by Stiv. 3 seconds down on James. Formula Danny very close, and we've got a three-way battle for second place. However, Hyper's getting extremely close to Nameless. Got a few battles to watch out for here on track. Let us know in the comments if there's any particular battle that you would like to watch out for in particular, or any driver that you would like to sit on board with here in a very wet China. Oh, Hyper's getting on the artificial grass, spinning up those rear tires just that little bit. So lock up. Even lock up across both front tires shouldn't affect him too much. But look at that McLaren and Red Bull up ahead. It's actually, Formula Danny might be getting close to Stiv. But it's just so difficult to find the traction in these wet conditions. So difficult to get a better drive. To get in a position to make a pass, as Danny with a little bit of a lockup, but it's getting so tight between these front three. Formula Danny feeding the power on, not going to get the best of run. Stiv though looked like he got a good run, but not good enough. And with these intermediate tires that can last so long in a race, as Formula Danny, Stiv running a little bit wide into turn one, and Danny potentially looking just to slot it down the inside for two. Not quite going to be able to get that to work though. But what I was saying is, intermediate tires, they last for so long, so much longer than your dry tires. And this is most likely going to be a one-stop race. As Formula Danny going to switch to the outside, looking to get the cutback. As Stiv doing similar stuff, trying to find a potential way past Kimi Larson. However, not Velocity anymore, Photon closing in onto Hypers, as is a Mark. As Formula Danny looking for something down into turn 7. That's a brave place to do it. Now on the outside for turns 9. Inside for 10. There's a little bit of contact. Formula Danny looking for a way through, and now that's allowed Kimi Larson to pull away. But that just might mean there's a little bit less slipstream for Stiv, and Formula Danny could potentially find a way through. Great racing from Formula Danny to try to find something here in the very tricky conditions. As Prisnida being given the chance to close back up. Napadovsky still sitting in 6th ahead of Kologon, Lema, and Nameless, and Hypers rounding out the top 10. But Photon very close now, only half a second, as there comes the dive bomb. Formula Danny gonna force his way through. Great stuff, couldn't have done it much cleaner than that. Formula Danny up into 3rd place. As we begin lap 6 of 28, Velocity James is still your leader, 4 seconds ahead of Kimi Larson. But now Formula Danny's found the way past on Stiv. He can begin his hunt on Kimi Larson and try to find a way through. and begin the hunt onto James. We do know that sometimes as well we see the Veloce boys, they are in the comms, so we might just hear maybe Formula Danny will be telling Hypers, okay, you can look for a move here, this is a good place, there's a lot of grip, because that is always useful just to get a little bit of info on the track conditions, you know, where a good move is possible. However, sitting on board with Hypers, he's still in 10th, Photon close behind, but Lehman falling back from the Red Bull pair of Napadovsky and Matthias Kologo. Napadovsky also falling back from Presnida. As Lehman running a bit wide into turns 9. This might compromise him out of turn 10, but not too much as Lehman. In comes the dive from Veloci Hypers. Is he going to go for this? Yes, he is. Side by side, there's a little bit of contact. Let's ride on board with Photon, who's going to have the best of views. Hypers going to be able to get the cutback through turns 12 and 13. This side by side is so close, and I think Hypers might just be able to do it. He's going to be on the inside as Photon, Nameless, getting the better run, but Hypers, can he go for something on the brakes? Photon might actually be able to pick up the pieces. Nameless running a little bit wide. Hypers, there's a little bit of contact, bit of twitching. Photon's going to go for the outside onto Nameless. Now, can he do anything? Still side by side between the Mercedes. There's a spin. Nameless losing the back end through the final corner. And this is going to allow MRL Mark to have a go at this, actually. MRL Mark round the outside in the other Ferrari. Can he do it on Photon? Not that much grip on the outside, as there would be in real life racing. But down the inside he goes for turn 3, and I think he might actually be able to make this work unless Photon can get some really good traction. It is good traction, but Mark surely will just hold the inside here. Can Photon do anything? Mark's not going to hold the inside. Photon's going to go back through and move up into 10th place, but Mark says, no, I want to keep on at this, but can't quite find the traction on the artificial grass. Photon will be able to reclaim 10th place as Veloci Hyper stretches out a gap in 9th. At Flashback Wade, yeah, I don't think Formula Danny could have done it much cleaner than that. He went down the inside. There wasn't too much else he can do. He took his racing line. He forced Larson. Actually, speaking of Formula Danny, we missed while all this action was going on. Formula Danny up into 2nd place, but going back to that battle with Stiv, he went down the inside into the hairpin. He took his racing line. He forced Stiv a little bit wide, but I don't really think he could have made it much cleaner than that in the situation he was in. It was side by side, and I think it was good, hard but fair in clean racing from the pair of them. As we just looking through the order, because Veloci Hyper is catching up to Lehman. Lap 8 of 28, and Hypers, actually Lehman might be letting Hypers through here, so not quite sure what's going on. Maybe they know each other, and Lehman just saying, I don't want to hold you up, Mr. Hypers. But Hypers running a little bit wide through turn 2. There's a bit of contact, actually. That might have caused some damage onto Lehman's front left wing. Hopefully, though, for his sake, it hasn't caused too many issues, as actually Calcifer's moved up into 18th, as I believe Kopi recently came into the pits. Nameless down into 14th after that spin. Photon, though, closing in onto Lehman and our Hypers, will be looking for a way through. Photon carrying the Toro Rosso team right now. Calcifer not having the best of days. We know that Calcifer has been struggling with overheating tires and traction, and maybe in the wet that is only exacerbating his issues. But let's just stick on board with Photon for now, because there's not too much happening elsewhere on circuit. Actually, as there isn't much happening on circuit, let's ride on board with our race leader, Veloci James. As Veloci James coming through the penultimate corner, feeding the power in. Let's just try to get one on board hot lap with James We might have to switch over to Photon and Lehman, though, as they battle for 9th place. Nice early shifts, bringing it down into 3rd. Nice and smooth, no sudden jerks as he slows the car down into 1st gear, down to 40 miles an hour, and slowly getting the power back in. Nice in that shallow line, actually, through turn 3. Doesn't need to let the car too far out wide. Dropping it back down through the gears into 1st. And I find myself talking very softly as James stroking it round the track. Silky smooth here from the Veloce man. The car just... this may sound weird to some of you, but I'm just listening to this engine noise and it just sounds like the car's at peace. It sounds like James is in a happy place, let's say, as corny as it sounds. But James fully confident with the car at the minute. Everything being inch perfect. Nice and soft down into 2nd. Slowly feed it up into 3rd. On the power as nice early short shifts to avoid as much wheel spin as possible. Or potentially a little bit of moment. James getting a little bit eager with the throttle, which you have to do. Otherwise you risk losing so much time. Formula Danny still 5.4 seconds behind. Not really able to close in onto James. And the gap stabilizing. Down into 1st place, 35 miles an hour. James with a little correction as he puts the power on through turns of 14. Oh, back end stepping out. James drifting it through the final corner. What's it going to be? It's a 146.7. Meanwhile, Formula Danny, what's he going to be able to do? The 146.3. That might have just come down to that final corner with the James losing the back end slightly. But let's go down the order to a much throatier sounding Force India, or I should say Racing Point Force India Stiv, closing onto the back of Kimi Larsen. Photon also getting very, very close to Lehman. As we're going to see Etnik heading into the pits. As actually there's a yellow flag in Sector 3. Let's just see on board with Calcifer what this is for. I'm not quite sure, as Etnik going to retire in the pits it seems, but both Redders not having a good day. They were currently sitting in 4th place in the championship, but Etnik and Kopi not quite coping with the wet weather conditions. I hope you enjoyed that pun. For more puns like this, do hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel, and thank you for everyone who is currently tuning in. Don't forget to share with your friends, as James having a pretty big moment through turn 13 as Kopi also retiring from the session. Both Renaults are out and will join Samuel Liebert in the DNF zone. James is just feeling he's getting slightly edgy as there's a yellow flag in sectors 1, 2 and 3. Not quite sure what that's for. Hopefully we don't get any safety cars coming through. So there's a green flag here. That's probably to deal with Kopi. There's a yellow flag up ahead, so not quite sure if that's maybe Vatkan who's had a potential issue. No, he's actually quite far ahead, but struggling in these wet conditions. As we go down the grid, Stiv still closing in on Kimi Larsen. Not too far behind, as actually Photon was able to find a way past onto Lehman. He's up into 9th, but Hypers struggling to close in onto the Red Bull pair of Napadovsky and Matthias Kologon. As Vatkan also retires from the session, so another driver struggling in these wet conditions. Let's see if we can catch where the incident is, and I don't think we can. He must have already retired from this session. We'll just see if there's anything here through turn 10. No, nothing at all that we can spot. Maybe he lost the back end like Mark did in qualifying. Let's go down through the order, because Mark closing in onto Lehman. And he's got Photon not too far ahead, but Mark will be eager to pick up some more points after that disappointing result in Bahrain. Mark and Photon currently battling for that 4th spot in the championship. Only 1 point separating them. Mark currently leading things on 16 points. But here we go. Mark seemingly going to get a really good run on Lehman. Lehman really struggling with his top end, as we saw. Oh, that's contact between Mark and Lehman. Now Mark's just going to have to back off for now and potentially have another go next lap round. But Kologun closing in on Napadovsky, who I feel is getting a little bit closer to Prisnida, only a second separating them now. And I feel like, and I think it was about 2 seconds before. Stiv also keeping the gap to, Stiv also keeping Kimi Larsen honest, as Kologun, the engine, screaming as he feeds the power in through turn 3. Not a happy sounding Red Bull at all. Oh, that lock-up sound is horrendously difficult to listen to. Much more, Kologun feels much more aggressive with his Red Bull than James does with his Sauber. Or maybe that's just because of the engine sound difference between the two cars. Let's ride on board with Formula Danny. We've been riding on board with James a bit. Let's kind of just compare Formula Danny's driving style in the wet, because he's closing in on James. It's only 4.3 seconds. So he's close about a second over 3 laps. So that's not too bad, getting about 3/10 a lap. And if he can get his pit stop spot on, he can gain even more time. Formula Danny really pushing, locking up his tyres. We're almost halfway through the race, so he can really start to push those tyres now. I'd be quite interested to see whether anybody tries to do the race on a no-stop, as Formula Danny with a 46 flat, as Prisnida is our first man to pick up a time penalty. Don't forget, 5 time penalties will result in a disqualification, and in the wet, that is even more difficult. Kimi Larsen, though, into the pits and will clear the air for Stiv to start putting in some laps. Let's just keep an eye on Kimi Larsen, where he comes out and whether Stiv can jump ahead. But Formula Danny, as we said, being much more aggressive with his Sauber than James, but he's finding those fastest laps. Formula Danny, you can feel him just being that little bit more aggressive, just putting on that little bit of extra power, while James just being so much smoother with the car. And the aggressive driving style from Formula Danny seems to be working for now. Braking traction with those front tires. I don't think that is a locking up sound. That is the loss of traction and the skidding across the wet tarmac. Mark, though, back down the grid. He's still in 10th, very close to Lehman, who is falling back from Photon, and Mark's going to have to find a way past through as soon as he can. Kimi Larsen coming out only under a second behind Krusix. Krusix will let him through. Going to let his Haas teammate by. What can Mark do this time? Mark versus Lehman once again. Mark going to go down the inside. Formula Danny sets another fastest lap of the race as Velocity James enters the pit. Lehman, though, will be forced to yield the position, as Marianne will be looking to potentially get something. That's Lehman! That is dangerous! That is so dangerous from Lehman, who goes into the pit down the inside of Mark into the final corner. And I wouldn't be surprised if he might get some post-race slap on the wrist. As I think that was a little bit too much, but Mark now, Velocity James has actually come out of the pits right ahead of Mark, so a good thing that there was this little battle between Mark and Lehman just before Lehman pitted. Otherwise, James would have come out just behind these guys. So perfect timing for James's pit stop, or slightly lucky if you prefer that. And the next man on the list for James is going to be Photon, who I don't think will give him too much troubles. They were Velocity teammates last year, may still be Velocity teammates, I'm not too sure. So I think Photon will be quite, won't cause too much of an issue for Mr. James. We also have to watch out for Kologon Pit coming into the pits, because Napadovsky and Kologon were battling for position beforehand. And I think it was Napadovsky who was ahead, so we'll have to see what Kologon can do. Also, don't forget Stiff and Kimi Larson. Stiff was behind Kimi Larson before the pits, as Mark with a little bit of a lag, as Marianne going to look for the move down the inside into turn 14, just like Mark did to Lehman. Mark going to try to hold it around the outside, but not quite going to be able to do, as Marianne will move up into a provisional 6th place, and both drivers will head into the pits. Oh, Mark, no! Oh, Mark. Ah, okay. And are you kidding? Mark disqualified from the session for clipping the barrier, spinning, and then, in quotation marks, blocking the pit lane. Once again, Mark he just can't get a clean race, the poor guy. He always does so well, and then something has to happen. Whether it's hitting a spun crow through turn 4 at Spain, whether it's disconnecting so many times from good positions, or doing a Lewis Hamilton as Hypers, getting very close to Napadovsky, as Napadovsky after his pit stop has come out quite a fair bit ahead. Sorry, Kologon after his pit stop has come out a fair bit behind Napadovsky. And Hypers now will be looking to pick up the pieces. A good stop from Hypers actually is able to enable him to split the 2 Red Bulls, as Napadovsky struggling a little bit on the cold tires as Hypers tries to find a little gap. Hypers going to look for the outsiders. Kologon gets a 3-second time penalty. Hypers though down the inside of turn 12. I think he's going to make that move work, as the directed camera on this game is absolutely awful. Hypers moves up into 6th place, and that is a permanent 6th place. Stiv, after his late pit stop, will come out behind Kimi Larson. Kimi Larson was getting fast, did pick up the fastest lap, but here we go. Hypers, can he hold the position? As Kologon going for the outside. I think Kologon's actually going to do this. Great stuff between the two of them. There's more contact, and Velocity Hypers potentially a little bit too aggressive, as Napadovsky will lose out on the position. Velocity James sets a new fastest lap as well while all this is going on. Calcifer up into 13th and might be able to squeak out a point. No matter what you say about Calcifer, one thing he is very consistent. Consistently quick and makes very few mistakes. And that is something that really helped him win the championship last year. Just no penalties every single race, just finishing in practically the same position. When Formula Danny wasn't there, he was winning every race. When Formula Danny and the likes of James turned up, it was constantly third, fourth. Never made any mistakes, never had any DNF, never anything going bad against them. Unlike Mark, who I feel is the polar opposite of Mr. Calcifer. Yeah, a little bit too aggressive from Hypers. I'll give him the leeway to say that it is in wet conditions, but side by side and just while they were touching, I think Hypers just happened to get the better traction than Napadovsky. But good to see some good wheel-to-wheel battles here despite the rain at this Shanghai circuit in China. Formula Danny only 3.5 seconds down on James with another 13 laps. 12 laps remaining. So let's see whether they can do anything, as James sets a new fast lap of the race with a 1:45.1. But Formula Danny, a 44.6, finding a half a second on James. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in for an epic final few laps showdown. Speaking of a showdown, Marianne and Lehman very close together. These two were battling before their pit stops, and they're still battling now. Remember, Mark would have been in this battle if he didn't smash into a wall, to put it quite simply, as Nameless actually closing back on this after his mistake where we saw him spin out. Can Marianne actually find anything here on Lehman? Lehman, I thought for a second, might have been getting a little bit sideways, but it was just the angle of Marianne's car. Marianne feeling the power in the back and stepping out just that little bit. Nameless a little bit further back. Keeping an eye, though, on the gap for the lead, as Hypers, as we mentioned, found the way past, and Napadovsky is the faster driver, and the two Red Bulls are side by side, as are Marianne and Lehman. Marianne around the outside into turn 7. I'm not quite sure if he's going to do it, but he's going to have the inside for 8. Oh, it's close between the two. Now heading into 9, Lehman has the inside, but he's going to run wide here, and he just opens up the flood for Marianne to find a way through. Marianne going to go defensive. Lehman forced to go for the outside into turn 11. Can he get anything to work? Riding a ball with Lehman, getting pushed out a little bit wide. Will push Marianne back. As the Nameless now, he's going to join in the fun. He's going to get the better exit through turn 13. Lehman and Marianne both running that little bit wide. Can we get a good view, please, Codemasters? 3 side by side. Nameless gonna back out. Marianne and Lehman. Nameless braking very early. Can he pick up the pieces? He's gonna get a really good apex. He's gonna get a good line through the penultimate corner. Nameless now getting the power and still can't find any way through. Lehman, Marianne side by side for almost an entire lap. Lehman running wide, which will help him secure the position. Marianne, though, gonna get a good run with the slipstream. Moves over to the inside. What's Nameless gonna do, though? This is great racing from the three of them. Marianne, Lehman still side by side. Nameless gonna take the shallower line. Might be able to find something here. As Marianne, I think he might have finally secured the position. So Marianne takes the defensive line into turn 3 and will hold on to the position. Now it's Nameless's turn to find something onto Lehman, as Marianne, I think, has got 10th place done and dusted. Don't forget, if you have any epic moments and favorite moments through the season, as Nameless getting very close to the back of Lehman, and I thought there was going to be a little bit of contact. Lehman put up a good fight against Marianne, but Marianne eventually was able to find the way through, and now Nameless will be wanting a shot at this as well. Up at the front at 2.5 seconds, separating the two Veloce teammates, as Photon hunting down James. Don't forget, if you guys have any favorite moments at any point during the season that you want to be included in our mid-season review, where we do a kind of a hype video to recap the halfway point of the season, don't forget to put down timestamps in the chat, so it just makes our life much, much easier to find the most epic moments of the championship. So Nameless getting close to Lehman. There's contact again. We keep on seeing this. Hopefully that doesn't cause any front wing damage to his red Ferrari. As Matthias Kologon still within 1 second of Napadovsky Formula. Danny almost within 2 seconds of James. Nameless getting so close to Lehman, but not going to be able to find anything. Calcifer actually dropping down to 15th. Crew 6 has been able to find a way through. Nameless, what can he do? Can he find anything at all onto Lehman? He's so close, but it's so hard to find any potential dive bomb in the wet conditions. However, Lehman not going to get the best of runs. Nameless, can he do anything around the outside? He's going to go for it, you know. Lehman, though, running it out wide on the entry, kind of force Nameless onto an even worse line, and Lehman, good, quick, tactical driving, but it doesn't matter. Nameless is still down the inside into turn 7. On the outside for turn 8, as Photon picking up a 3-second time penalty, still side by side. Nameless forced wide for turn 9. And I think that's Nameless going to be able to secure the position done and dusted, as, oh, Nameless. Sorry, Lehman actually running really far wide. I thought Lehman was on track, and Nameless had a moment as Lehman has to take a evasive action to avoid Nameless, and I think Lehman's just a little bit tilted. He's going to do a few donuts and probably will just retire from this session. Unlucky stuff there from Mr. Lehman. As Photon picked up a 3-second time penalty, we just about saw that on the screen. However, speaking of Photon, he's 3 seconds down on this battle between the two Red Bull teammates for 7th place. As once again we're going to see no Williams pick up any points. But Kologon and Napadovsky, this is going to be the second biggest battle of the race, with the exception of, actually, Stiv and Kimi Larsen are having a good battle, so that's going to be quite interesting to watch as well. But the battle for first, the battle for third, and the battle for 7th, this is where we must keep our eyes for the remaining 9 laps of the Grand Prix. Lehman tried to crash on purpose. He braked late, and he was going to run into the back of Nameless, I feel. So he took evasive action and turned right, and then I think he intentionally went into the wall. So he might have some repercussions, as the rules of ORL state that you are not allowed to rage quit, and I do think that counts as rage quitting from the race. But yeah, will be interesting to see what the league admins say on that. I think it's very clear that it was intentional from. I think it was quite intentional from Lehman, and that was an intentional rage quit. And I think the league admins may agree, but we'll have to wait and see. I don't want to draw any conclusions while only having seen the incident once. Kologon, Napadovsky, half a second separating them. Stiv, Larsen, 8/10 separating them, but Formula Danny and James, 1.5 seconds separating them. Danny can see James. I hope Danny has his lasagna ready for him, because he's going to deserve it if he can find a way through into first. Didn't get the best of qualifying results, and this would be great stuff for the two Velocity guys to be able to lock out the top 2 steps of the podium. And actually, Kimi Larsen, it's going to be a 1-2-3 for the Sauber Esports drivers. And we talked about Velocity 1-2-3s, and now it's Sauber 1-2-3s. There's a Sauber 1-2, and I'm sure they're going to be very, very proud. But for that to happen, Kimi Larsen has to defend from Stiv, who is closing in pretty quickly. I don't think Kologon is going to be able to find anything onto Napadovsky here. Also, Formula Danny with a second place here will actually move up into second place in the standings, and Hypers will still be able to keep his lead fairly comfortable, but will lose out just a little bit. I forgot my water again today. I need to remember it for next week. Okay, Stiv, really, really close. He's looking for the inside, heading down into turn 14. What can Stiv do? Kimi Larsen on the outside. Can he hold this? Kimi Larsen will be forced to yield the position as Stiv takes his racing line, and Stiv will be able to move up into third place. Good job from the Racing Point man. As Kologon picks up a 3-second time penalty, he's actually just found a way through onto Napadovsky, so I'm not quite sure what happened there, but that's Kologon's second 3-second time penalty, so a total of 6 seconds of penalty, so Napadovsky will jump ahead regardless, as will Photon as well. Photon only with 1 3-second time penalty. However, also to recap our penalties, as Napadovsky might want to get something back onto Kologon, but Prisnider also has a 3-second time penalty, so Hypers will jump ahead of him and move up into 5th place. But I think Kologon is going to pull away from Napadovsky now. He's got about 7 laps to try to stretch out that 6-second lead. I'm not quite sure if he's got a second a lap in him, but you never know. Napadovsky could make a mistake or get a 3-second time penalty himself. But Formula Danny, he's on the back of James. This is an absolutely fantastic drive from him so far. What can he do? He's got 7 laps. 7 laps. That is a long time to find a way through, as Crucix picking up a 3-second time penalty. That doesn't matter though. Calcifer currently in 13th place as Nameless closing in on Marianne and might be able to pick up a final point. The final point here Formula Danny locking up into every corner. Crew 6 will retire from the session. I think he took some wing damage that got him the 3-second time penalty, and then he retired in the pits. Not quite sure why, as we don't have any onboard footage from that. However, Formula Danny and James are quite close, but I feel like Photon and Napadovsky, this could also be entertaining. It's a three-way battle right now, as Kologon hasn't been able to pull away from the Super Swede, as you guys are calling him in the Twitch chat. I quite like that. I think I will refer to him as the Super Swede from now on. However, there's a yellow flag in Sector 1, and I'm not quite sure what it's for. I'm trying to ride on board. I can't quite see anything, so... Sector 1 and 2, okay, there it is. Who is that up ahead? Is that Calcifer? Okay, it's Crew 6. Crew 6 still riding around, but he had actually DNF, so I'm not quite sure why his car's still just ghosting around on the track. It's really annoying when that happens at a track like Singapore. But Formula Danny and James, this is as close as it's been all race. This is as close as James has had anyone since the opening lap of the Grand Prix 23 laps ago. Formula Danny, the aggressive Sauber driver, pushing everything, trying to catch down this man, Velocity James, who has been silky smooth all race. Jenson Button versus Lewis Hamilton. Alan Prost versus Ayrton Senna. Am I hyping this too much, guys? As Formula Danny is closing in. It's now 4 tenths. Ah, so you have to retire before the pit entry line. Okay, that is an interesting point to note. Oh, Formula Danny having a bit of a moment, putting the power on the exit of turn 16. Meanwhile, back down the grid, Photon closing in onto Napadovsky. As is actually Nameless closing in onto Marianne for the final point. As it stands, if Photon can find a way past Napadovsky, he'll move up into 7th place regardless because of the time penalties that Kologon has. We're just going to try to keep an eye on all of the different gaps around the track so that we don't miss anything. If I miss this, an overtake for first, I'm going to be so disappointed in myself. Okay, I feel like this is getting close now. Formula Danny and James making their way through turns 7 and 8 into turns 9 and 10. Formula Danny close. And where do we reckon the move's going to happen? Because I think it's all going to come down to the entry into turn 14 and whether Danny can get the good exit through this complex here. Turns 11, 12 and 13. He's probably as close as he has ever been, but still a little bit too far back. It's always difficult to overtake in the rain. This is what we talked about before the race itself. In the rain, you don't have DRS, and we'll just make it that a little bit trickier to find a way through. Oh, lock up from Formula Danny. Finds the apex regardless. Going to get the power straight back down. It's actually Hypers falling back from Kimi Larson. Sorry, Hypers has found a way through on Prisnider. So we missed that, but Hypers up into 5th place. Formula Danny and James very close. Under 3 tenths this time around. Formula Danny just drawing himself a little bit closer every lap now that it's got within half a second. Photon still within a second of Napadovsky. Could potentially look for something. Nameless as well. But I don't think either of them there is enough of a pace differential for them to find a move. Whereas Formula Danny has been closing by over half a second on James per lap. Does he have anything left in the tyres though? Does he have the ERS? He's got 35% ERS, James with 41% ERS. Both of them using 0 ERS at the minute. We can't see the fuel level just yet. Here we go, Formula Danny still close to James. Can he find anything this time around through turns 11, 12 and 13? Nameless closing in onto Marianne. He's within half a second now. Photon falling back from Napadovsky, who's in return falling back from Kologon. And Photon, he's now outside that 3-second gap of a Polygon, so he's not even going to be able to jump ahead, which is unfortunate stuff from him. Hyper's also doing a good job climbing through the field after starting all the way down in 11th place. Formula Danny, he is so close to his Sauber teammate James. He's just trying to get the power and trying to find a potential way to get past. Needs to find the drive, but how do you find the better drive here in the wet? It's going to be extremely difficult, and it's going to require a mistake from James, I feel. But James, with that silky smooth driving style, I don't feel like he will make the mistake. Formula Danny is the person more likely to make the mistake with that more aggressive driving style, but we'll have to wait and see, because Formula Danny knows how to put the pressure on. We remember back to last year. In goes Formula Danny, the dive bomb down the inside, but it's so late, and James will be able to take the position. Good reactions to see Formula Danny coming and just pick that cup back up, but this is what we talked about. Formula Danny knows how to apply the pressure. Now that James has seen him there, maybe that will just give Formula Danny a little bit of a mental edge, and this is going to be a fantastic final few laps. Halfway through lap 26 of 28, and this is absolutely fantastic stuff. Formula Danny, so close. Remember, Austria last year, ORL season 10, Formula Danny and Williams Isaac. The best last lap that we have ever seen. One of the best sim racing laps that has ever happened, in my opinion. And Formula Danny came out on top. Could we see the same thing here in the wet? We have seen side-by-side action for so many laps. There's almost contact there between Formula Danny and James as we are about to start lap 27 and the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. Formula Danny, he needs to put his thinking cap on now. What is he going to do? Where is he going for the move? And he needs to set himself up for this, because if he doesn't, he's not going to get past. He needs to outthink James in every way possible. He needs to make himself look like he's going for a dive bomb and back out of it somehow, if that's even possible. Photon, within a half a second of Napadovsky, we don't care. We're focusing on this battle for the lead. Formula Danny, how is he going to do this? Right on the back of James. We lose engine sound when we move over to this. Will Formula Danny go for it again? He's really late on the brakes into this corner, and that's what enables him to go for that dive bomb. Maybe on the final lap he can go for that dive bomb once again, but for James has seen it once before. He will be expecting it now. Formula Danny 4/10 down. Nameless closing in on Marion. Let's just take a quick look on Nameless, who might be actually looking for the outside through turn 7, I believe. Through turn 8, I believe that is, and side by side between the pair of them. But I'm afraid we can't miss any action here at the front, because Formula Danny right on the tail of Velocity James. This is the battle for the lead. 1 lap and 3 corners remaining. Formula Danny, can he get the run on Velocity James through turn 13? It actually looks like a pretty good run. This might be it for Formula Danny. He's getting really close. James will go defensive. Formula Danny gonna stick in behind him as long as he can. It's Sauber 1 and 2. James moves over to the outside to get the best possible line. Formula Danny, can he find the cutback? Yes, he can, but he's not quite gonna get the drive. He's right on the chuff of Velocity James as they make their way through the final corner. Can Formula Danny find the drive? James has a little moment with the back end. Formula Danny is right on the tail. We make our way into the last lap. James covers the inside. Formula Danny, where are you gonna go, my dude? Your lasagna is waiting for you. Formula Danny, can he switch over? I think he can. There's a little bit of contact. James goes sideways, and Formula Danny will take the lead. A little bit of contact there. We'll have to speak to them about that after the race. But Formula Danny finding the way through in the final corner. In the final lap. Formula Danny takes the lead of the Grand Prix, and I don't think James has any answer to this at all. Wow, what a race here at China. Absolutely fantastic stuff. As the Nameless fallen too far back from Marianne. Photon could potentially have a last chance at Napadovsky, but I feel he's also too far back. Hypers within 6/10 of Kimi Larson, but he's going to have to absolutely ace this middle sector if he wants a chance. Oh, Hyper's getting on that power. Going to get a little bit of that rear wheel lighting up, but Formula Danny, look how much quicker he is than James. It was kind of inevitable, but yeah, it was unfortunate. A little bit of understeer from Formula Danny led to that tap. Will be interesting to hear James's perspective and Formula Danny's perspective on it, but for now anyway, your provisional winner is going to be Formula Danny. A great race from him, great drive through the field, and he waited patiently and was able to find the final lap pass as Sauber take their first 1-2 of the season. Formula Danny leading the way. Stiv going to be coming around the final corner in just a second. He's going to be taking the final step on the podium ahead of Kimi Larson and Veloci Hypers, who does lose his winning streak, as Prisnider will take 6th. Matthias Kologon and Napadovsky just behind them. Photon will take 9th, with the final points position going to Marianne, unless there is some final issues that can happen to him. One corner remaining. I don't think anything will go too badly, as Nameless cuts the corner right at the end. He picks up a 3-second time penalty. That won't matter. Nameless into the wall and will cross the line sideways. Ah. But there we go. What a fantastic race to this Chinese Grand Prix. Don't forget, guys, if you have any questions that you would like me to ask your top 3, do drop them in the chat, and I will do my best to ask those questions, as long as it isn't anything bad. You can imagine what bad is. But yeah, so don't forget to do that if you can, as we'll be heading over to our post-race interviews very, very shortly. But there, once again, you have it. Formula Danny taking the win ahead of James. And in 3rd place is CRG Stiv. We're going to be heading into a short break, and we'll be right back with our interview. So make sure you do pose any questions you would like me to ask in the chat. We'll be seeing you in just a short bit. Okay. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready to get our interviews underway. Joining us are our top two, Formula Danny and Velocity James, and also fifth place man, Velocity Hypers. How are you guys all doing?
Hi.
Very good.
All
right.
Right. Let's start off with yourself, Danny. A great race. You came back. You came through the field. Some great racing in the wet. How was it for you?
I'm very happy about my decent wet race pace. On my quali, yeah, I wasn't so good. I didn't put a great lap together, and obviously I couldn't really adapt to my wetter setup than the dry. It was very understeery because in the wet you usually use an understeery car, and I had to use it for the dry as well with higher wings, so lost a lot of times in the straights. But obviously in the race, I managed to pull down a 6 seconds gap, and after a 4 seconds gap on James. But after the magic stopped, as no matter how much I cooled down my engine, and after had a great exit, put it into reach and then overtake mode, I just couldn't gain as much momentum as I wanted, and I just couldn't be alongside James on the braking. Once I tried to do a switchback move in the hairpin, but he had an awesome exit there. He covered it off greatly, which is a very hard defending move from his side, because when you need to brake so much on the inside of the track, it's always extremely hard to find the right braking zone. And before that, I tried the dive bomb, but just arriving to the apex because I needed to slow my car a lot down. I locked my tires a little bit, and he used this as a chance and to gain a momentum, and he did a switchback move on me. So laps were ticking down for me, but I really wanted to get that race win after seeing my race pace, and my strategy was to force him to the very inside line, arriving to the first turn, and after try to do a switchback maneuver there, which on my screen I did, but I don't have a recording, and fantastic theater mode doesn't show it. There wasn't a car length where I could have put my car in, but using the curb on the inside, I was alongside James for maybe a second and a half before we eventually touched, because he really wanted to keep that door very tight. But I was halfly alongside at that point with my car, so I felt like I have the right to stay there and use my position and maybe have a small touch, and then he lost stability. But obviously we have a steward in this league, so if this move wasn't all right, then they can give me a penalty and rethink the results. But I think it was an awesome racing. I'm really glad that I could do this battle with James. And sorry, my darling, I don't do it in esports. Be nice to each other. Love is in the air. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, we'll come back to you, Formula Danny, in a bit. But James, I was watching you and Formula Danny. We were riding on board with you a few times. You seemed silky smooth, and while I was watching, I was kind of commenting. You know, you looked so calm. You looked so confident. Everything was perfect. Then I'd go over to Formula Danny, and he looked like a raging lunatic. Like every corner, he was locking up, just throwing the car in. Somehow, he was catching so much time to you.
The thing is that in the game, let me mention that, sorry to interrupt you, but when you look up in the spectator mode, it's usually not a look up, it's just a small glitch. When you brake really hard, it says that I look up. But if it would have been a case, probably James would have smashed me. So I didn't really look up, but yeah, I was trying my best.
James, you had such a good start. When did you start thinking, okay, Danny's really catching me now?
Well, to be honest, I went the opposite way on strategy. So in qualifying, I had a dry setup, hence why I got pole. And Danny was talking about how he was understeering in the dry because he had a wet setup. That's why he was fifth. So I knew as soon as he got into second, it was going to be really hard for me. So when I saw after like lap 7, he was still third, I was like, great, this is good. Every lap that goes by is helping me win this race. And then I think lap 8, he got into second, and I was like, okay, game on. And to start with, in the first stint, he wasn't really catching me. So I was like, okay, this isn't too bad. And obviously in the wet, with a dry setup, it's just so oversteery. It burns the tyres out quite easily on the wear. So I was, as you say, smooth but slow in a way. Obviously, Danny's a beast, as we all know, but yeah, in the second stint, he was just an animal. I thought I had him. I really thought I had him. Into that first corner of the final lap, I thought I had him because that final defending move into the final hairpin
Yeah.
on the 27th lap, I was like, yes, because I thought that may be his final opportunity. So, but yeah, too much speed for me. Just beat me by over a second. Fair play to him. Good race, and we did Alfa Romeo very proud.
Yeah, of course, you're both Sauber drivers, Sauber esports drivers, and a Sauber 1-2, Velocio 1-2 as well, so you get the whole shebang.
Yes, the full Monty. Pole, fastest lap in the race win for Alfa Romeo. Lovely jubbly.
Right, going over to you, Hypers. Not the best of qualifyings, but you came through the field so well.
I went for the same strategy as Danny, so opposite to James. So James went for James and many others went for a dry setup in quali, so they were way quicker in quali, but then they lost a lot of time in the race. I went for the wet setup because I felt like that's gonna work. So obviously the qualifying was never gonna be any good, especially with the lap I did wasn't really good. I feel like there's been 1-2 tenths in it easily. But the race, I guess it was good. I think 2 more laps and maybe I would have got Kimi for P4, but in the end P5 after that qualifying and on the track I really hate, probably my worst track on the entire calendar. I'm happy with that.
Well,
yeah.
A good job for you. And the next track is at Azerbaijan. How do you actually all feel at that circuit?
Good. I know Danny's a bit of a specialist around there, but
these guys have esports practice done on it. I don't, so that's gonna be another difficult race. But Spain, this is where we fight back.
Okay, Spain. So we'll watch out then for the resurgent at Spain. Danny, quick question. We have to ask this every single time you're here. Do you have your lasagna?
No, I don't have my lasagna. And I can't even open the live stream, but now I hear the sound and didn't see it.
No lasagna, Danny.
I had it yesterday. It's really good, Danny. I know.
Oh, I hear myself 2 times.
Right.
I shared the love of lasagna, yeah. It's really good.
Sorry, I don't understand anything. There is too much sound in.
Quick question to you and off guys. When you guys race, are you in comms with each other or is it silent between you guys?
No, silent this time. I was going to chat with Kimi, but I think we just decided to go silent, to be honest. But I don't know about Danny.
I'm very antisocial and never attend DC, sir.
I don't believe that for 1 second. I'm pretty sure it was Danny and Photon who used to be in comms last season.
You can't be in comms with Danny because he just starts singing mid-race, you know?
Right, we need to end this quickly. You've just reminded him of the singing. All right, guys. Fantastic. Oh, yeah, sorry, Danny.
I just checked the replay. I think I was there, but I will show it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do a steward's inquiry.
Yeah.
I will let you say goodbye. I'll let you do my job because I always speak in you.
It's fine. Great race from all 3 of you. And I can't wait to see you guys out again at Azerbaijan. So best of luck for you there and for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much.
Adios.
Thank you.
Cool. See you guys.
See you.
Right, guys, that was round 3 here at China Shanghai. A very wet Shanghai indeed. And it was Formula Danny who was able to take the win on track against James after a fantastic final lap display. Hypers did come in 5th with Kimi Larsen in 4th. And Stiv took the final podium spot in 3rd. We're going to be back next week on Thursday, same time as 7:45 p.m. BST, sorry. We're going to be back 7:45 p.m. BST for round number 4 at Azerbaijan. Make sure you join us then, because we're going to be looking forward to it massively. So until next week, see ya and stay fast.